black, brown, and HBCU bound. Your source for news you can use. Let's shine a light on the 207 HBCUs where culture meets excellence. Of the past to the dreams of today, we're here to guide you every step of the way. For the scholars, the change makers, the voices we see. HBCU pride building history, 207 strong, a legacy profound. We're black, brown, and HBCU bound. We're black, brown, and HBCU bound. Voices that echo, stories that resound, highlighting the legacy, shining so bright. Empowered and futures igniting the light. Black, brown, and HBCU bound. Building the bridge, breaking new ground. Together we rise, hear the sound. We're black, brown, and HBCU bound. Scholarship, dreams, and a campus so alive. From culture to courage, where futures thrive. For parents and students, the vision is clear. We've got your back, it's your time of year. Every story we tell, every voice we lift, unlocking potential, the greatest gift. Tune in for the wisdom, the stories untold, the rhythm of progress, the spirit so bold. Your podcast for knowledge, where dreams are unbound. We're black, brown, and HBCU bound. We're black, brown, and HBCU bound. Voices that echo, stories that resound, highlighting the legacy, shining so bright. Your fire and futures igniting the light. Black, brown, and HBCU bound. Building the bridge, breaking new ground. Together we rise, hear the sound. We're black, brown, and HBCU.
Good evening, everybody. Hopefully, you are tuning in to hear. We have a wonderful guest, Ms. Tesha McMillion. She is a financial aid advisor. She served for 20 years in this field, so she's got a wealth of information. She even was employed by an HBCU. So, of course, you know that is our focus here at Black Line HBCU Bound. So hopefully, if you are in, you're able to tell a friend because we're going to be sharing some great information. And we'd like to be able to get some of your questions answered. A lot of you are this is your first go at this. And I'm proud to be able to bring and elevate somebody from the group who is going to be able to share some wisdom with you guys. So but without further ado, I'm going to have her come on and introduce herself. And if you just put your questions in the chat, you'll be able to bring them to the forefront. And we're going to take it from there. So let's share some information. We're going to welcome her to the stage. Ms. McMillion, how are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing fabulous. I want to thank you for coming on and being dedicated and being such an active member in the group and being willing to come on and shed some light. I know that your area of expertise is just what it is that we are and what we do. And your target audience is the people in our group. So I'd like you to be able to tell them a little bit about who you are, hopefully as they're trickling in, and maybe we'll get some questions in the chat. I'm gonna put my old lady glasses on so I can read them. I'll be able to get these questions answered. So
Sure.
Please tell them who you are and why you're so special.
Oh, my name is Tesha McMillion, and I am a higher education professional. I've been in the industry for over 20 years. I spent the first 15 years working with a student loan servicer. I always tell everybody student loan repayment is my area of expertise because I started working with defaulted borrowers. Then I worked my way up to where I was the supervisor of the department that processed a lot of those repayment options that some of you may have submitted to your servicer. So I do know student loan servicing. Once I mastered that, I decided to go work on campus because I wanted to get a feel for what it was like to work with a student. I knew what it was like to work with borrowers, but I wanted to work with the student. And so I accepted a position at HBCU in my city, and I was the default manager and a financial aid counselor. I worked there for almost 5 years. And when I left, I was the interim financial aid director. And so in my current role, I am a senior business consultant. I work with financial aid offices worldwide, implementing my employer system and training financial aid staff on how to use it. I also have a higher education business that I call The Help. And what I do is I just provide financial literacy. I provide the literacy based on whatever it is somebody needs. If somebody needs something FAFSA related, student loan related, whatever it is, I just share out. Some of you follow my help page on Facebook, and I just post information. People find me, they ask me questions about their financial aid and their situation, and I just assist. I believe strongly in the literacy, and I believe strongly in giving back. So that's me.
Well, I'm so glad to have you here. And I do want to point out that you're a very active member in the group. I see you sharing your knowledge within the group with people who have questions. And that was what made you come to the forefront and made me realize that I needed to reach out to you, because I respect the knowledge that you have and the information that you contribute to the group. And I'm sure a lot of other people do too. I'm not sure if people are on as they start to have their questions, maybe we'll be able to see that. But what I will ask is, why is financial aid information so important to people in our audience, the Black, Brown, and HBCU sector? And I want to preface it by saying, I'm always going to say our group is HBCU focused, but this information can be used across the spectrum. PWIs, private, public, HBCUs. We like HBCUs. We want to encourage our kids to utilize that system as much as they can, especially in these times. But we are not going to shun people who are not going to end up at an HBCU for whatever reason that is. So the information, like I said, is universal. We want to bring it to them. You please tell our audience what you think, why you think financial aid and discussing it is very important to specifically HBCU students or students at large.
It's so from my experience of working at an HBCU and working with families, it's a lot of misinformation out there. So I'm not sure what happens in high schools, and I'm not saying anything negative towards high school counselors and whatever their role is. I know when they get to the college, we are so rushing through things that we're not taking the time to explain, you're doing this to get this, you're doing this, and explaining the reasonings why. And so a lot of times people come and they're ill prepared and they're not understanding the processes, and we don't have the time to devote to really be able to give you that literacy that you need. We're just telling you, go on that computer, go to studentaid.gov and apply for that Parent Plus loan. You, the parent, you're going up there doing it. I'm not telling you that you're borrowing this loan and this loan has to be repaid back. I'm not telling the student, hey, go complete your FAFSA. And a lot of students and still don't understand that financial aid isn't all free. There's that loan component of that financial aid package is what really people overlook sometimes. And so I've worked with students who've been 3-4 years in school, and when it's time for them to do exit counseling because they're about to graduate, and I ask them about their loan debt, they'll say, I don't have loans. And I say, well, how did you pay for school? They'll say, oh, I did financial aid. I did my FAFSA. And that's the part, and that is the information that I truly try to really stress about. This is the process. The process is the same whether or not you go to an HBCU or PWI. You're going to complete a FAFSA. It's going to go to whatever schools are that are on that FAFSA. They're going to review your we call it an ICER in the financial aid world. We're going to review your ICER, and we're going to determine what federal aid you're eligible for. And that federal aid will be the same across the board. It's the same loan. It's the same Pell. It's the same. Those things will be the same. The difference in financial aid packages truly come from the school and their institutional aid. How generous are they with their aid? How much can they afford to give? How do they distribute it? What is their priority? Those types of things. Everything else is going to be the same across the board. And I've run into a lot of times where a parent will say, well, I don't want my student to take loans. No problem. You can deny or decline any part of the financial aid package that your school is presenting you with. Just because loans is on there doesn't mean you have to accept them. You can decline all of them. You can even just accept the subsidized loan, which is the loans that the government pays the interest on while you're in school, and decline the unsub. You can do a combination of things. You don't have to accept. But what you do have to do is have a plan to say, if I decline, then I have the means to cover what I'm declining. Because a lot of times what I saw in my office was parents were declining it and they did not have the means to cover, and they wanted the school to cover. But if you're looking at a school that doesn't have a lot of endowments, they don't have large scholarship funds, then they can't cover for everybody because you don't want to accept student loans. The process is you do the FAFSA, the student accepts some financial responsibility for their education, the parent accepts some responsibility for the education, and the school gives something for that education. So it's kind of like all of us are like we're buying into this education for this child. But a lot of times I've noticed that parents want schools to cover 100%. And sometimes they want them to cover 100% for a student who don't qualify for the 100%. So,
and that's a fantasy.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. Yes.
You know, in my travels, I can't tell you because also my daughter has a scholarship company where she teaches students how to get scholarships, how to acquire and locate scholarships. I can't tell you how many people they think because their student has a 4.0 GPA, or they think because their student is an exceptional athlete that they're going to, I don't have to worry about that. They're thinking they're going to get scholarships. That is the most misinformed notion that you can have. And I try to explain to them, let's just say that's the case. You still should be considering how you're going to fund this child's education, because you don't know how much they're going to be given. You don't know if what they're given is going to be given to, for a span of 4 years. You just don't know. And you don't want to wait until 11th grade, 12th grade. And most wait to 12th grade. I have to admit, most wait to 12th grade to get the financial aid paperwork, which is around now, and then start thinking, how am I going to do this? That is not a good idea. That's why you're here. I'm so thankful that you're here, because I've been saying this all along. I mean, I'll tell wherever I go, I don't care how exceptional your student is. You cannot rely on a school to wholeheartedly take on that responsibility, because these days, I don't know, it wasn't really like that, or these weren't my friends when I was in school, because I was an average student. But these days, the average kid is walking around with a 4.6 GPA. When I was young, there was no such thing as a 4.6 GPA.
Correct.
So the schools just don't have the money to fund all of these exceptional students. So financial aid, other than the FAFSA, has to be looked at as early as possible. Some say since birth, but realistically, a lot of our families, and not just Black, Brown, and HBCU bound families, but a lot of families don't have it within them when they're starting a family to start, nestling away some money for a student's college. So just because of daily struggles or your social circumstances, you may not have the ability to be able to put money to the side for college, but what you do have to start thinking about, how am I going to accomplish this? You don't want to put it off on your student, because they don't have the mental maturity to have that as being their number one priority. They don't look at college from that perspective. But as a parent, knowing a little bit more about finances, a little bit more about how the world works in terms of having money or not having money, you as the parent having that maturity has to be able to be the one guiding them. And I also want to talk to you about one of the questions I had, and this is going to come out of the chat when I monitor the Facebook group. You see students that will come on and they say, I have a free ride at school A, and school B, which is my dream school, is offering me nothing. Should I take the free ride, or should I go into debt? And these debts, sometimes these schools could be $50,000 times 4.
Yeah.
What do you say to that?
For me, and I'm speaking specifically because I worked with a student loan servicer, I work with people still struggling to pay undergraduate debt 20, 30 years later. I work with people who have defaulted maybe once or twice. I work with people who can't buy a house because now all of a sudden they have this federal thing. I don't encourage anyone to take on student loan debt, if at all possible. I get that. To me, a free ride and knowing I graduate in 4 years and I don't have to repay a single loan is a beautiful thing. And that's just me. And so I would say for that student, if you have this free ride over here and you have your dream school offering you nothing, what does that look like for the family unit? Because it has to be a good financial fit. Financially, can the family unit that you come from, can they afford to make up for whatever that cost is, that out-of-pocket expense? How is that going to cover? Because people will say, oh, well, schools, you can do a payment plan. Most schools that I work with, and this is in my senior business consultant role, when I ask them, do you have payment plans? They say, oh, yeah, but the plan has to be paid by the end of that semester because we want it paid off before the next semester. So if I have this out-of-pocket cost of $20,000, you want me to pay $10,000 by the end of the first semester, and they try to cover another 10 in this economy, the way things, some people just can't do that. And it's okay that you can't do that. I just think that for me, it's about being wise with these dollars and this debt that's going to follow you forever, especially considering that school A may be free and you don't have to do anything. And then this school B, who's not offering you anything, by the time you leave there, you have 6-figure student loan debt.
Mm.
It's
that pains me. The thought of
Yes.
that pains me. And there's students that right now are making these decisions. But right now, students are getting their financial aid award letters, and they're really making tough decisions. Should I take on this debt? Whether it be the prestige of the school, whether it be, just all types of reasons why people would even consider going into that debt. And I always like to say, it is a family decision. Some people are willing to do that, so I don't knock those who are, but you have to think, and especially now with our economy, and it looks to be like our economy is going to be set up like this for, looks like the foreseeable future, until I don't know what's going to change. But oftentimes you find students who will graduate, or they study a major, they select a major that can't possibly put them in a position to pay back this money. So that also has to be looked at when you're considering the amount of debt. And I can't even specifically put a number on it, because debt is accumulated by a lot of things, so it's an individual thing. But when you have a student who is considering taking on this amount of debt, and I'm going to be honest, I have a criminal justice degree, right?
Mm-hmm.
We do criminal justice because you're a civil servant.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to get rich doing this. I am not a rich woman. I feel rich in my heart, but financially, I'm not rich. So,
Yeah.
Imagine had I left my school owing even $100,000. I don't see how my job put me in a position to comfortably pay that. I'm kidding. I'm not poor, but I'm certainly not rich. And that would have hurt me. I know that would have hurt me. And I'm just thankful that wasn't my case. But I like to think that the people who are out there listening or not listening, hopefully they'll watch this in a playback. Those are some tough decisions. I see students, and I get a lot of my information from watching the group, and I see people say things like, my child did so well in high school, and I'd love to be able to reward them by helping them get to school A. I just don't see how we're going to do it. Should I take out these loans? And I want to scream and say, no. But I say that is a personal decision. But
Correct.
Before you make that decision, just I didn't consult somebody like you. I didn't even know people like you existed. But I would say before you even consider doing that, at least talk to a professional.
Correct. And I have and the professional isn't the person in financial aid, because the person in financial aid.
No, not that person.
Correct. That person in financial aid just needs you to, what are you going to do? Are you going to do the loan or not? You're going to do the private loan?
Right.
You're going to do the federal
loan? Not
loan?
to disparage them, because they do their job.
Yeah, absolutely.
But they're not really there to counsel you.
Correct. And let me tell you, so when I was at the HBCU, I did the counseling because I worked as a servicer. So in my mind, as I'm speaking to this first generation parent who was considering taking on, I had a parent who didn't want the student to take out any loans. The student, I promise you not, he's in my office. He's got his headbuds on. He's not listening to anything. We're talking business about how we're going to get him in here for the fall. He slumped down in his chair, headphones on. He just on his phone. He ain't even here. She's like, oh, I don't want him to take loans. I'm going to take the whole cost. I just want to borrow. And I'm looking at her, and I said, you want to absorb the whole cost? She's like, yeah, about $35,000 a year. I said, do you know what that looks like? Paying it back. I said, let me tell you this. I said, all I can do is give you the knowledge, and ultimately I respect whatever choice, whatever decision you make. But let me tell you this, whatever you do that first year, chances are, and looking at the student, you're going to do this.
I didn't want to say that.
Yes, I had to tell him to take his head, to sit up.
He doesn't even look interested.
Right. Yes,
there's a good chance he might discover that this is not for him after the first year. And I'm not knocking him. That happens, but you still owe that $35,000.
Correct. And she was willing to take that debt on because she did not want him to have any debt. She didn't have any savings. She just was going to borrow that Parent Plus loan. And I explained to her that what some people, yes, the Parent Plus loan is easy to get. It's not credit based. It ain't looking at your credit score. All it's looking for is, do you have any adverse credit? Do you have a bankruptcy? Have you defaulted on another federal loan, a federal debt? If those two things are no, then 9 times out of 10, the government's going to approve you for this loan. And why is that? It's because you don't have an option to repay it. Everybody thinks that repaying student loans is optional. It really ain't. You either going to pay voluntarily by working with your loan servicer, or you're going to pay involuntarily through default. And what I try to explain to her is a student loan, once a student graduates, a student loan is set up for a standard payment plan of 10 years. That's 10 years. And then, yes, you can consolidate and you can stretch it out as much as you want. But ultimately, as we get older, parents, we're getting older. Our bodies are getting older. We're not going to be making the same financial money we're making now. Right now, we're in good health. Everything's great, but we don't know what's coming down the line. Mm-hmm. And so what I say is, as we get older, and we need to start thinking about retirement and what we want that financial future to look like. Is this really a debt that you can absorb and take on? And that's a true consideration. I get that you want your kid to go to the school. You want to make it happen. And I get it. And I feel like, and maybe I feel differently when my 8-year-old is going through the process. But I feel like if my son has this full ride somewhere and he's asking me to pay out of my pocket $50,000 a year to a school that didn't really offer him anything, then I'm going to say that may not be the best option for us, because again, it has to be a good financial fit. You don't want to bankrupt the family sending your student to school, especially if you got more kids coming up behind them. And especially as we're getting older and we can't really foresee what's going to happen. So we really have to think strategically about what's the best fit, but what works best for the family unit. Yes, there's great schools everywhere. I get it. Some schools carry a lot more name, they're a lot more popular than others. But at the end of the day, it still has to be a good financial fit. And if the family can't absorb the cost without bankrupting itself internally, then I would say, let's have a conversation and maybe think of some other ways or some other opportunities that may work better for us.
With your example, I like to tell parents who ask me, I don't know why they think I'm the expert in this area, because I truly am not. But when they say things like that, I say, even if you can finance your students' education, and even if you are willing to do whatever it takes to make it happen, to get the money available, students have to have some skin in the game as well. Mm-hmm. You taking on the brunt of that, financing their education. Mm-hmm. Sometimes we want our kids to go to college more than they want to go to college, and sometimes we don't see that. So they're following along. Okay, you're going to college, but just like the example that you used of the young man slumped over in the chair, you're not even paying attention. You don't even look attentive enough for me to make this investment.
Correct.
And you're gonna be talking about when it's time to pay it back, when you may or may not finish. You're the one that wanted to take this loan. I didn't ask you to take this loan. You might start hearing things like that. Yes. So again, and I'm not here to say don't invest in your children, because that's the last thing I'm going to say, because I'm a helicopter mom, and I will be a helicopter mom until I can no longer be a helicopter mom. But you have to make sure that you know what you're doing, and like you said, don't bankrupt your family. Don't put yourself in a position where, like, again, another thing you said that was wise, when you make decisions like that, you're not looking at the fact that yes, you can do overtime now that you're young, but as you age, this loan is not going to be quickly repaid. But as you age, you like you said, you're tired. You might not be able to put in all that overtime to pay this loan, and it will ultimately be your loan. Meanwhile, your child is off living their life, doing what they do, and this is your loan.
Yes, I hear parents say all the time, "Oh, well, no," and the student will say, "Oh, I'll pay it. I'm going to pay it. My mom will never have to pay it." I'm like, "No, your mom signed that master promissory note. They're coming after her. They're going to garnish her wages. They're going to take her taxes. They're going to do all of those things to her because her name is on the note for that loan. So whether or not you pay it or not, legally, you're not responsible. Parent is responsible because parent applied for the loan. So what I just say is consider everything. We all know our students. We know our kids. we know when we're like, just your strengths and the weaknesses of your kid. And I've seen a lot come through. Alone, who went through the process alone, which really is probably why I'm more passionate than I would have been had I not seen how many of these kids are going through this alone. Working on an HBCU campus, I didn't realize until then that a lot of these kids, they just showing up by themselves. Ain't nobody there with them. Ain't nobody telling them nothing. They're just literally going through life by themselves, going through this process by themselves. They don't have anybody, and it's hurtful. It's so, and when you start seeing it, and you try to save everybody, and I have that complex where I want to help them all. Oh, Miss McMillion, I can't get home for the holiday. Okay, how much is a train ticket? Oh, Ms. McMillian, I had to drop this class 3 times because I can't afford the technology. I can't afford the book. I don't have a refund. I don't have the money. How much is the book? And, I'm working in financial aid at HBCU, so my money is not long by any means at all. But what's long is my desire to help and to get these students where they need to be. And so seeing that and knowing that they're going through. So, and I think in the group, I see a lot of students and I see a lot of students kind of posting. And so when I'm mindful of that, because it's kind of like you're posting like you have to figure it out. And I've seen some say, I'm doing this on my own. It's so big that you can't do it on your own. You can try, but to be the most successful, you got to have a village. And when I would tell my students, like, it takes a village, and when they would say, Ms. McMillian, I don't have a village. What I got is you. What I got is you. What I got you. And they knew I'm going to try to do my best to make sure that I get them whatever they need to get. But a lot of these kids are going through it alone and they don't have the knowledge or the understanding of a lot of things. So I took my role as financial aid for not just financial aid, but just life in general. They're bringing me things that they don't understand. They don't understand tax documents. They don't understand things. And it's kind of like, imagine how many of them are just doing this alone. In the group, there's lots of family. I see lots of parents are really invested, and it's a beautiful thing. But then there's the other side of it is some aren't interested in doing it. Some aren't interested in seeing their student reach further or do it. Maybe it's because it's a lot of first generation parents and they don't really understand the process. And I've had parents call in the financial aid office and say they don't want their information on the FAFSA. I don't want to be responsible. And I have to explain, you're not necessarily responsible for anything. Your information helps your student get need-based aid. That's how we process it. It's part of the process. I don't care. I'm not going to be on it. Mm-hmm. Trying to reason with somebody who's saying, no, they're not going to do. And there's nothing I can do in financial aid. Financial aid isn't this thing where I can do what I want to do. I'm governed by regulations, and there isn't but so much I can do. Mm-hmm. When I have a parent who's unwilling to assist in the process. I've seen, I can't tell you what I've seen, but I can tell you that it truly have made me sad a lot of times. And it's kind of like, you want to save them all. I want to help them all. I want to save them all. And if I can save you with just explaining the process and giving you the literacy so that you don't make any mistakes that maybe I've made, or the mistakes that I've seen that from people who are trying to now get it corrected, then that's why I share what I share.
On an offshoot, and I'll get right back. We have someone lined up, because not that the student that you're describing who doesn't have that village, but there is another sect of children or students. I got to stop saying children, but students who come through the foster care system, and a lot of times they're getting ready to age out of the system. And they have what it takes to go to school and to into the next part of their lives while maybe going to live on a campus. And there are some funds available to them, and there are different, they meet other eligibility requirements for that type of aid. So because of that specific type of student, we have someone lined up who will be coming on to interview in the next couple of weeks to see if we can, because I do see a few of them as well in the group, and to maybe try to address some of the things that are out there for the people just across the country, because a lot of students, believe it or not, a lot of them are even in that category. Now, I know that's not the ones that you were talking about. You were talking about the ones that just don't have people in, like, whoever their guardian or parent is just maybe not in a position to help them, doesn't have the knowledge to help them, so they're floundering and trying to make it on their own. And I get that too, but we're just trying to address as many issues as we can. When we look at the group, I have a team who helps me look at the group to see where we can try to find professionals that can meet the needs that we see where there are holes in the systems, which is why I'm so thankful that you're here. But getting back to what are some common mistakes that you see in terms of students and families applying for financial aid, and what are some pointers that you can give people that might help them, avoid those mistakes?
I think with the FAFSA simplification, I think it really helped wipe out a lot of the things that we would normally see. So prior to that, FAFSA had 105, 106 questions. Now it's down to less than 20, 30 something. It's so the mistakes that were made was when it was 100 and something questions. When you had to enter in your tax information, or you chose to enter it in, and you're getting your gross wrong, you're entering in too many numbers, and instead of putting you make 50,000, you're putting you make 500,000, or you're not signing the form and you're not doing certain things. FAFSA has skip logic. So the questions that you answer is based off of whatever you answered previous. So you're only going to answer whatever questions are applicable to you. I think the biggest thing that I know for people will say, oh, I completed it. You can complete the FAFSA, but that doesn't mean it processed. And it doesn't mean that it processed successfully. And I think a lot of times is not paying attention to that email that says it processed successfully, or that no, it didn't process. There's an error that needs to be corrected. And that information goes to the student first. It goes to the school too, because the school will know, hey, there's an error, it didn't process, we can't, and they'll reach out to you. But you also get the same email the school gets that says it didn't process. So
a lot of times the kids don't even go back to look at the email or the film to even realize that they have to do more work.
Correct. And that's the thing. And it just sits. And so it sits, and then the student is waiting on the school. School is waiting on the student to do whatever it is that they need to do. And in the meantime, no financial aid is being awarded because they don't have the financial aid. So I would just say the biggest thing is after you complete the FAFSA, it takes 3 to 5 days to process. You should get an email that says it processed successfully. And if it didn't, it's telling you that there's corrections that you need to make. Be mindful of the corrections and go back out and correct your form, because that incorrect FAFSA that didn't process, it went to every school that was listed on there. And when schools are working and importing in those FAFSAs and they're working, they have systems that send out information telling students, hey, you didn't sign it, something's missing. And then they're working with the students whose forms are good. They're awarding those students. They're beginning that process with those. So you don't want to miss out on that. You want your form to be.
And that pool is not an endless. It's not an endless pool of money. Right.
Correct. And need-based aid is awarded first come, first serve. And sometimes scholarships, especially those merit-based, people get them in early. People want to say, oh, it's. I can wait a couple months after it opens up. Why? Why can't you just do it when it opens up and get it over with? Do it when it opens up and get it over with.
What do you say to and I know that there has some truth to it. What do you say to the students who have been accepted to schools, multiple schools, and they know that they want to go to one specific school and they've committed to that school in terms of going back and letting the other schools know that you've taken acceptance somewhere else so that those slots can open up? And also not only those slots open up for other students to be accepted, but also whatever merit aid that they were going to promise that student also can go back into the pool. What can you speak to that at all?
I think it's important for, as far as like, once a student tells a school that they're not going to be accepted, that process of saying, okay, once that admissions office notifies financial aid, we then go in and we take that aid off. It's not important for federal because who cares? Federal is specific to that student. Right. But it's important for that institutional, because if we know a student's not coming who we've given the scholarship to, we can now cancel that scholarship and we have somebody else already lined up ready to get it. So I would just say once you know for sure that you're not attending, even if you're not even know for sure, but if you have 10 schools lined up, and eventually there has to come a point where you have to start narrowing it down. Don't hold 10 spaces or 10 award letters full of money when you truly know in your heart you're down to 3. Right. Be mindful that other people may want that spot, and then it's not even necessarily that spot. They want that money. You're holding up, because what they do is a lot of times we'll cancel off that money for all of the students who are not going to come, and then then normally we find that out once it's time for the student to come to school and they're not there anymore, or they never show up. So then we do this whole big round of canceling off all of the aid, and then we go back and we now freed up all of this money to now give to those other students. Right. So just being mindful, I would say you don't have to necessarily commit immediately, but there should be a process in place for both parents and students. If you're saying, all right, we got 10, all right, at this point we got to get you down to 5, at this point we got to get you down to 2, so that you will then I think that would be better to do that. And
more ethical. So you're not holding up a student that might really, really need that money when you know you have no intentions of going. Correct. In terms of because I'm a proponent of challenging financial aid, merit aid. If you really know that you want to go to a school, can you give any pointers on how a student should approach that? Because when I do tell people that the process exists where you can challenge how much you've been given, and if anybody's out there listening, please put some questions in the chat so Ms. McMillion can answer them. But in terms of a school promising you a certain amount of money, but that's just not quite enough. Can you speak to the process of challenging a financial aid award, or the success, what you've seen in terms of success in that process?
And so, and to be transparent, my school wasn't a school that had large endowments and big buckets of money. So truly, we had a set number at the beginning of the year of how many presidential were those full riders. They're getting the full rides, and then we got the ones that weren't full ride, but they were still just as good. But well, not just as good because it wasn't a full ride, but it was still a decent amount of money. And so I would say that first you have to know what is the school setup. Is this a school that truly, how much need are they known to cover? How much are they known to award? And then thinking about what you're asking for. Have you received what you're asking for from any other school that is comparable to the school that you want to now increase? And then writing just a very compelling letter to explain why these are the things that what you feel like would make you qualify or eligible for more aid than what they are. But I think one of the things is people want schools to consider stuff that isn't on their list of things to consider. We have to keep it based. Everybody has to get the same consideration. So even doing an appeal, you were still getting the same consideration as every other student. We can't look at something different for your student that we didn't consider for everybody else, because that's not fair. So the goal is just to make sure.
Give me an example of that, because give me an example of that. What you mean by that?
So, like, if a school is looking at ACT, SAT, and then you have, I'm going to use ACT, SAT. If the school has an awarding criteria that determines who gets what, and you want them to consider something that's not on their list of things, is what I'm saying. So if it's something where it was something where somebody did ask a question about, well, can I ask them to look at such and such? And it wasn't part, and if it's not part of the awarding criteria, then a school, it wouldn't be fair to the other students who got it, right? Because the goal is to make sure we're being equitable with how we're awarding the aid. So if we didn't consider that for all of these other students, then it shouldn't be something that we consider for yours that you're asking for more money for because of this one thing. If that's the case, then everybody should be able to get it. But the goal is just more so my student, I retook some tests. These are my new scores. Or, hey, these are some things I didn't include in my application. Or, hey, I got these offers from these schools that are just as comparable as yours, maybe even better. And this is what they're offering me. And that's what you're doing to build in the offer, not to build in the appeal, to be able to ask for more aid. But I'm just saying it can't be something that's so far away from what their awarding criteria is that they didn't consider that for anybody else, because that's not fair.
Okay, and that makes sense. What I tell students when I talk to students, because I mentor students when I can, what I tell every student I come in contact with when they're during the application process, when you look at schools, make sure you apply to 2 public schools, 2 private schools, 2 in-state public schools, 2 in-state private schools, 2 out-of-state public schools, and 2 out-of-state private schools, at least those, because you want to be able to compare apples to apples and oranges to oranges when you're asking them for more aid. So if you at least have 2, wherever you're accepted, where you want to go, if you don't feel as if they've offered you enough aid, or you feel like you might want to appeal it, you have to have something to compare it to. You know, you want to be able to say, school A accepted me and they're giving me this much money, but I'd much rather bring my talents over to your school. The only problem is at this time, the cost of attendance is a little bit out of reach for my family. And at the same time, I'd like to just bring to your attention that this school is offering me this money. Is there any way that you can take another look at my financial aid package and maybe try to see how we can work some numbers? Because I really would. I've wanted to come to your school since I was in the 5th grade. This has always been my focus. This is what I'd like to bring my talents, and maybe we can just make this happen. Maybe you can just reconsider.
See, that is something that I would consider. That is fair, because that's all things considering. Like you're bringing me what other schools. Now you can't come and just give me this letter that you wrote and said, I got this. These other schools are giving me 30,000 more, but you've not shown me any letter from any school that's giving you 30,000 more. Like within the letter, there has to be the evidence to support what you're saying. So you have to be able to support whatever you're saying, and it's good if it's a school that is of the same comparison, not giving me something that's totally just not even. And then also too, just also understanding like the schools that you're going to, are these schools that have large endowments where they have, but I think truly a lot of schools want to give money. They want to give money to everybody. Everybody gets some money, but truly a lot of schools don't have money.
You just
They
can't. You
don't
can't
have
give
money.
what you don't have. You know.
Correct. And a lot of this, and a lot of it too is these are just discounts. It's not even money. A lot of the schools, it's not real money. It's discounts off of the tuition so that everybody pays less. So it's just a discount, and they would love to do it, but if I'm at a school who has a very small endowment, we don't have any more than what this is. So we tell all the students, you got to get it in early. When we say the application is open, you have to get to it. You can't be like, do. And parents, you can't have nonchalant students when it comes to doing these things, especially when it comes to deadlines. And that's the biggest thing. We had the worst time trying to get students to. We were a school that would receive money from UNCF. We had to literally go drag students and say, all you have to do is create the profile on UNCF, and we got money. We couldn't even get them to create. It wasn't even writing the essay. It was create the profile on UNCF so that we can give you some money to help cover whatever. It is so hard to get students to do scholarships, and when you don't have the parent to say you have to do them and commit to doing however many weeks, it's hard. Then when they come to us and we're like, we had all this money and now we don't have it anymore because the students who we always found the students who didn't need it, they did it. The students who needed it didn't do it.
Well, I sometimes will attribute that in my head. I attribute that to maybe they don't have the support. I belong to a professional club, and we give 5 scholarships a year, usually around $1,500 each. And when I tell you that sometimes we get 3 scholarships, we have to extend the deadline, tap people on the shoulder, begging them to apply. And it's like, I don't get it. People are giving away free money out here. And you know what I think it is? I think that these students think that there's this pool of money just waiting for them. They don't understand that the competition is fierce. And when you do get that acceptance letter, it's going to open your eyes as to how much it's going to really cost to get you on that campus if you decide to go away. I don't, every student doesn't go away. But you just when you start to mature enough to realize that you want to go away, all those scholarship applications that you poo-pooed away and didn't apply for, I tell students, I don't care if the scholarship is $500. If you're eligible to apply for it. I don't care how much it is. That can buy a book, that can buy a tablet or whatever it can buy. So I you can't imagine. Strangers, I'll see a kid that looks like they're approaching high school, and I'm like, you know this, you got to get a scholarship strategy, right? My daughter does this for a living. She teaches people how to get scholarships, how to look for scholarships. You can't tell people enough, but they just don't get it until, what are we in, March? Look at the group. You'll see how many people are just amazed at how much money they have to come up with. And I'm like, every time I put a comment in, I'm like, you guys got to get a scholarship strategy together. You got to get a scholarship strategy together.
Yes, it's so important. And when I do college fairs, I tell the parents, I'm like, listen, I'm talking to y'all because the student ain't listening. You got to get a plan down for scholarships. I said, and you have to tell your student it's okay to go for the small ones. Small ones add up. Everybody wants $10 million. Yes, everybody wants to get. Oh yeah, everybody wants the $10 million one because somebody on Facebook said I got $10 million in this one scholarship, and then you bypass all these little ones and these local ones. No, those you want the little fish too. All of that starts adding up, but it also it takes it truly. But again, I couldn't get them to do them when I was in the financial aid office. Even when I do college fairs, I'll have parents say, "Oh yeah, we look and we just don't know where to look." And I think it's great to have that resource or tool to be able to tell parents and students how to look for scholarships, how not to have your information out there in somebody's website, putting in all your personal whatever, and they just stealing information. But being able to understand what is a good site, what is, how to search successfully for scholarships, and then create this plan, like you said, of applying. Make it a weekly goal that you're going to do however many, and it's okay that you don't get the first 3 that you apply for, even the first 5. It's literally that thing where you got to keep going, and eventually they come. But you can't do 2 and be like, that's it. I did it 2 months ago and I didn't get nothing, and I'm just done. And they give up so easy.
When you get to the finish line and you see all the time that you wasted and how much money is staring you down in your face, separating you from your school or your dream school,
Yeah.
It's just a shame when it was just time wasted. And I like to tell families that this is not something that you can put on your student. It has to be a family affair. They need a partner. They need somebody to hold their hand. They need somebody to encourage them and nudge them, because
Yeah.
they don't truly understand the impact that this student loan debt will have on their future,
Mhm.
which is why I'm glad that you came
Yes.
on. We don't have any questions in the chat. I do have one person that asked, what motivated you the most? But you talked about that. I guess you can answer that question just for the purposes of respecting a question that was asked.
Oh
And maybe,
yes. When I was working with the servicer, I was working with borrowers, and they were all of all ages, of everything. But when I went to the school, and I was truly floored at how the lack of literacy. Like, my role was, I was a default manager, and I was responsible for the financial literacy.
right,
Our population was a lot of first generation students, a lot of them parents. I didn't do when parents came on to the to school for that day where they look at their financial aid, and it's whatever that welcome day is. It's been so long I forget, where they come in and they meet with financial aid, and they meet with all the different things. They put on a little show. I was the person who was on the stage in the auditorium talking about this financial literacy. I was the one, and I always, even when I do college fairs, I always dig and drill deeper, because I want you, whenever you're going around to whatever campus, and these financial aid people, love them to death, but we got things to do. We're putting you in like a soup kitchen. Hey, come in. Hey, okay, you did your FAFSA? Yes. Okay, did you do your master promise and interest on counseling? Sure did. Mom, dad, did you do the parent plus loan? Yep. And we're just kind of getting you in and getting you out. And then next thing you know, you go home and you don't even know what you did.
right.
I need you to understand that part of what you did was, student, you completed a FAFSA that's going to include some loans that we're going to offer you. You have the right to accept, reduce, or decline. If you accept or reduce any part of it, you still have to pay it back. And there's consequences for not paying it back. Mom, dad, this Parent Plus loan that you just applied, that you said to use it to cover whatever the remaining balance is, you're saying you're willing to borrow whatever that amount is, because we don't know what that amount is, but this amount is open. This Parent Plus loan is open, and it is going to be used to absorb whatever the remaining cost is for your student. You do understand that. You are committing, you sign the project. Like, I'm literally breaking it down to that level, and that is what I want for us. I want us to be able to make informed decisions whenever we go on these campuses, even when we accepting this aid. And it's okay. I'm not saying don't accept student loans. If you have to, you just have to. That's just like, but I want you to accept them, and I want you to borrow responsibly. I want you to understand your rights and responsibilities as a borrower. I want to give that to you, because you see the climate. We got federal student aid, half of the workforce gone. It's so much. And I just want to be the resource for those who need it, to be able to give them that understanding that maybe I didn't have, or maybe you didn't have as an adult, that you want your kids to have, and not to make the same mistakes as you did. And that's what a lot of parents will say. They'll say, I don't want my student to end up like I did. Nobody told me, and I wish I had you when I was going through school. I wish I had me when I was in school, encouraging me to do things, to do this. But I want to be a resource, and I want to give back. And the best way I know how is through the literacy. That's what
You sound like a woman after my own heart. That is the reason why this group is here. I'll never stop saying it. I created this group so that people have what I didn't have. I think that's what it motivates people who are givers and givers of information. They're motivated by what they didn't have, and they like to fill a hole where there might be, so that they can save someone else from not suffering the same fate that they did. So you are such a valued member of our group, and I thank you. And I know sometimes it gets a little rough in those comments. People don't sometimes understand that you're here from a good place, but I'm going to encourage you to continue to spread your knowledge and your wisdom. And I personally thank you for coming on. I'm hoping that people that will watch this in the retakes and will feel like they got something out of it. But I know that you do consulting. So is there a place where, oh wait, there is a question. It says, but before I let you go, let me just put this one on. It says, are you saying UNCF?
United Negro College Fund.
Right. UnitedNegroCollegeFund.org. And there's also the Thurgood Marshall College Fund.org. TGMF and UNCF. Those are two search engines. Well, explain what that is. You're the professional.
United Negro College Fund. A lot of the schools, HBCUs, get funds from them, and a lot of times they have scholarships, but sometimes they only require you to create a profile. So when you go in, you create your profile up there, and then for my school, they would say, hey, here's $200,000. help students who need money. And then we would have to go in and we'd have to find students who would create a profile or who already had one. And we look at their account to see if they had a remaining balance or whatever. And we would just put money on there to do that. So each school is different, and what the monies they get from UNCF is definitely different, but you can use them for scholarship opportunities. But I would say the very first thing you should do is create a profile up there. I think it's definitely is beneficial.
You know, and I'm going to add to that. When my daughter was in school, she applied for, I think Howard was, some schools are UNCF and some schools are TMCF. And then there are a few schools that can get money from both of them for their students. Right. And I think Howard, if I remember correctly, TMCF was with them, the Thurgood Marshall College Fund. And what I will say for the parents that don't know, even if you do have to take loans, and I'm not advocating for that, but if you do find yourself in a situation where you've taken a loan, apply to these organizations, because at the end of the year, they have monies left over or money slated to help students who had unmet need. And at the end of the year, when they go through their balance and they have whatever the surplus is, they start distributing that to people who just had loans or who had unpaid balances. So there is a strong reason to apply to both those organizations: the United Negro College Fund, which is UNCF, the Thurgood Marshall College Fund, which is TMCF. I'm a strong advocate of both of those organizations. As a matter of fact, I'm going to be doing something with the TMCF in the upcoming months. So I encourage students to, if nothing else, and also the Congressional Black Black College Foundation. Yes. They too, aside from wonderful internship opportunities, they also have scholarships. So I'm not as versed as you are in financial aid, because I don't come from that angle, but with my kids applying to over 100 scholarships and getting 90% of them, I like to think of myself as a scholarship guru. Now, as a professionally, I do it for free because it's just my passion, but I'm always available to answer questions, and I'm just thankful for the people who were able to join us. And again, people will be probably seeing this in the playback. And I'm hoping that they were able to learn something from what we brought to them this evening. And I thank you so much for your time and your expertise. And please, I'm going to encourage you again to continue to be active in the group, because I, for one, realize that we need you. I see you. I watch the comments. So I see you out there. And I see you trying to save one life, one financial future, one kid at a time. So I appreciate
one at a time. To each one, teach one. I do. That's what I do. And right now, I'm not. Even though my business page, I'm not taking on clients at this moment. Now, I will work if you have questions specific to financial aid, or if you have questions specific to student loan repayment. I definitely don't mind having a conversation with you. Like, it's literally us just kind of talking, but I'm not taking on new clients at this moment.
Well, there might come a time when you are taking on new clients. So can you tell everybody out there how to reach you, who you are? Sure. Not who you are, because we know who you are, but how to reach you for those who might be able to catch you at a sweet spot when you are taking on.
Yes, if you are on Facebook, if you just type in help, that's the name of my page. Wow. I am the help. It is, I am the help. And it stands for Higher Education Literacy Provider. I post a lot of information about everything from FAFSA to financial aid to student loan repayment, default, whatever. If it's student loan related, I post it. I post videos. I'm very active now with everything that's going on. You are able to schedule a consultation with me if there's something specific you want to talk about and you don't want to put your business out there on the internet. I totally don't mind. Just reach out to me and we can definitely chat about whatever it is that you have going on. I definitely don't mind.
God bless you. That is such listen, our group is packed full of knowledgeable people who are willing to share. There's no reason why any of the 30,000 people in our group don't have all the answers, because within this 30,000 group of family members, I like to call them, there's somebody who knows something about something that you don't know. And if you don't know it, you ask it. If you don't know it, you can ask it anonymously. There's no shade. We don't do drama. We don't make fun of them. When I find people making fun of, they get out. I'm very strict. I'm a law enforcement officer. I keep peace, and we're not having that around here. You get kicked out quick.
And understand with me, it's no judgment. So don't be embarrassed to ask whatever you need to ask. Don't be ashamed that you're in whatever condition. I have some people say, I have people on my own personal page who will say, Tesha, I waited so long. and I've been embarrassed, and that's why I didn't reach out. And I tell them, listen, this is no judgment. Tell me what you need. It's definitely, I'm going to get you to where you need to be or where you want to be. All we got to do is have a conversation. So if there's something that I can assist with, I definitely will let you know. But I'm also too, I understand when something's just not my area of expertise, and I'll gladly let you know that from my experience, this is what I know, but I may have a better resource for you. Or I may tell you I may not be the proper resource for that, because what I don't do is speak on things that I don't know factually. I want to save us both the heartache. I will tell you exactly what I know. I know Title IV funding, federal student aid. I know that. So whatever it is that's if it's Title IV related, we can definitely have a talk. You want to talk about processes with the school. Keep in mind, every school is different. Financial aid officers around each school is different. So just because one financial aid office did it, don't mean another one's going to do it. It's different. Everyone has their own set of rules and criteria for how these offices are run. But I can tell you that's specific across the board, and that's the same. That's that federal aid from your FAFSA, loans and Pell. Exactly. Anything else based off of the individual school, and they can do that because it's their money, so they can do it however they want to do it.
Okay. Well, I'm going to thank you, and I'm going to end here and do a little bit of a wrap up. I thank you. You can't imagine how much this has meant to me. And hopefully the people, I say 30,000 strong, hopefully at some time or another, they have an opportunity to check you out. And this information is not information that expires, so it'll be there for when they're willing to come on and listen. And I'll see you in the comments.
Awesome. All right. Well, you have a good evening. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Okay. I'll see you later. Right. Take care. So there you have it, everybody. That was a great interview. I hope that she was able to shed some light on some of the information that you guys might have been looking for. I'm saying so many times, like trying to get my thoughts together. Stay tuned. We're going to be, like I told you, or I mentioned briefly in the middle of the interview when I was talking to Ms. McMillion, we will be bringing information from some people we have lined up, talking to people who are in foster care system, and they may be aging out on their way to college. We want to bring some resourceful information to you guys to see how it is that we can, help you along. And even students who don't have a lot of parental support or guardian support. There are several students out there that are doing it on their own, and we want to be able to maybe hold your hand a little bit if you need that. So there are other people we have lined up. I can't think of them right now, but we're in the midst of trying to bring great information to you as always. So hopefully you guys will stick around and tell a friend. We have a Facebook group. If you're just joining from somewhere other than the Facebook group, we have a Facebook group, Black, Brown, and HBCU Bound. Check us out on Facebook. There's a great deal of information that is shared there. Just understand that we don't do nonsense. But I'm going to end here. I've kept you for long enough. I thank you guys for joining, and see you in those Facebook streets. Take care.